Elena Voss had lived inside the walls of Blackthorn Castle since she was 8 years old, and in all that time, she had learned one simple rule: never look the Alpha King directly in the eyes. Draven Ashcroft ruled the Blackthorn Pack the way winter ruled the mountains: cold, absolute, and impossible to argue with. He had taken the throne young, after his father was murdered by a rival pack, and the loss had hardened something inside him that never softened again. He trusted no one completely, he forgave no one easily, and for reasons Elena never understood, he seemed to save his sharpest words for her. "You're late again," he said one morning, standing in the doorway of the library where she worked as a record keeper. His voice was flat, but it cut deeper than shouting ever could. "I'm sorry, my lord, the candle's needed. I don't want excuses. I want results." He turned and walked away before she could finish, leaving her standing there with her hands trembling around a stack of papers. It had always been like this. If a report was missing a page, it was her fault. If a meeting ran long, somehow that was her fault too. The other servants whispered that the king simply disliked her, though no one could say why. Elena told herself it didn't matter. She had learned to survive far worse than cold words. She had survived losing her entire village as a child, carried to Blackthorn territory by soldiers who found her alone in the ashes of her home. Whatever pain Draven caused her with his sharp tongue, she reminded herself, it was nothing compared to that. Still, there were nights when she lay awake staring at the ceiling of her small room, wondering why her chest ached whenever he was near. Not sadness exactly, something stranger. A pull she couldn't explain, like her heart recognized something her mind refused to accept. She didn't know that the ache had a name. She didn't know that somewhere beneath Draven's ice-cold indifference, his wolf recognized her too, and had been fighting against a truth neither of them could sense. Years passed this way. Elena grew from a frightened girl into a quiet, steady young woman who kept her head down and did her work well. Draven grew colder with each passing season, burdened by the constant threats against his throne and the isolation that came with power. He barely noticed the servant girl who kept his records in order, or so he told himself. In truth, he noticed her more than he cared to admit. He noticed when she left the room. He noticed when other men spoke to her too long in the hallway, and something hot and unfamiliar would twist inside his chest. He told himself it was simply protectiveness over pack property, nothing more. He never asked himself why the feeling burned so fiercely. What Draven didn't know, what nobody in Blackthorn knew, was that decades earlier, a witch named Merrin Duskwood had been hired by an enemy pack to disrupt the bloodline of future alphas. Fated mates were sacred among the wolf packs. A true bond could unite rival territories and end generations of war. To prevent this, Merrin cast a spell on a number of newborns across the region, hiding their mate bonds so completely that neither wolf nor human sense could detect them. Draven and Elena had both been marked by that spell before they could even walk. It explained everything, though no one alive understood it yet. It explained why Draven's wolf grew restless around Elena without cause. It explained the strange dreams that visited Elena at night. Dreams of a version of Draven who was warm, who protected her, instead of dismissing her, who looked at her, like she mattered. She always woke from those dreams confused and a little ashamed, certain they meant nothing. But magic like Merrin's does not last forever. As the years passed, and both Elena and Draven grew older, the spell binding their bond began to weaken. Like a rope, fraying under pressure it was never built to hold forever. The unraveling began. The Night Pack scouts found the body of a young wolf near the northern border, drained of strength in a way that pointed to dark magic. Draven, furious and suspicious, led the investigation himself. The trail led him, after weeks of searching, to a small cottage deep in the forest, the home of Merrin Duskwood. She did not run from him. Instead, she welcomed him inside with an unsettling calm, as though she had been expecting this visit for years. "You've come about the missing bond," she said before he could speak. Draven's jaw tightened. "I've come about a murdered wolf. That too is connected." Merrin studied him with old, tired eyes. "Tell me, Alpha King, have you ever wondered why your wolf reacts so strongly to someone you claim to despise?" The question struck him like a blow he hadn't seen coming. He said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Merrin explained everything then, the spell she had cast decades earlier, the hidden mates scattered across the region, the slow decay of her magic as time wore it down. "Somewhere in your own pack," she said quietly, "is the mate fate chose for you. Hidden from your senses since the day you were born. I cannot say who. The spell blinded even me to the details once it was cast." Draven left her cottage with his mind in chaos. He thought of every servant, every pack member, every woman who had ever crossed his path. And though he tried to push the thought away, one face kept returning to him, again and again, refusing to be dismissed. Elena. He told himself it was impossible. He had spent years treating her with nothing but coldness. If she were truly his mate, wouldn't he have felt something warmer than irritation? Wouldn't his wolf have known? But deep down, in the part of himself he rarely listened to, he already suspected the truth, and it terrified him more than any enemy he had ever faced. The final piece fell into place during the Blackthorn ritual gathering, an old pack tradition meant to cleanse the territory of lingering dark magic. Every generation, the pack elders performed a ceremony at the heart of the forest, using ancient fire and old words to burn away curses that clung to the land. This year, with Marin's confession fresh in everyone's mind, the elders insisted the ritual be performed early, in hopes of breaking whatever magic still lingered. Elena stood among the servants gathered to watch, having no idea the ceremony would change her life forever. As the elders spoke the old words, and the fire rose high into the night sky, something shifted in the air, a pressure breaking, like a held breath finally released. Draven felt it first. A wave of sensation crashed into him so suddenly, he nearly stumbled. Scent, warmth, recognition. His wolf surged forward with a certainty he had never felt before, and his eyes found Elena across the crowd, as though pulled by an invisible thread. Mate. The word echoed through him with a force that stole his breath. Elena felt it too, a warmth blooming in her chest, spreading through her entire body, as though a door long locked had finally swung open. She looked up and found Draven already staring at her, his expression stripped of its usual coldness, replaced by something raw and stunned. And with the bond finally awake, memory came rushing back to both of them. Not new memories, but old ones, seen clearly for the first time. Every sharp word, every cold dismissal, every moment Draven had hurt her, without understanding why his heart twisted with guilt afterward. It all made a terrible, painful sense now. Draven's knees nearly buckled under the weight of it. The woman he had spent years treating with contempt was the one person fate had chosen for him above all others. He found her later that night, standing alone by the edge of the training field, arms wrapped around herself, as though trying to hold herself together. Elena, her name came out rough, uncertain, a tone she had never heard from him before. She turned, and for the first time in years, she let herself look directly into his eyes. What she saw there surprised her. Not coldness, not irritation, something that looked almost like fear. "I didn't know," Draven said quietly. "I swear to you, I didn't know." Would it have mattered? Elena's voice trembled, though she kept it steady. "Would you have treated me differently if you'd known sooner?" The question hung between them, heavy and honest. Draven didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "I don't know who I would have been, but I know who I want to be now, and it isn't the man who made you afraid to speak in my presence." Elena studied him for a long moment. Years of hurt did not disappear simply because a bond had been revealed. She had spent too long protecting her heart to hand it over so easily now, fate or no fate. "I need time," she said finally. "The bond doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't make me trust you." To her surprise, Draven nodded. "Then I'll wait, and I'll prove it, however long that takes." True to his word, Draven changed, not all at once, not perfectly, but steadily. He stopped issuing sharp commands without explanation. He began asking for her opinion in matters concerning the pack records, listening when she offered it. When rumors spread that remnants of Marin's old network of dark magic still threatened the territory, he made certain Elena was protected without ever making her feel like a possession to be guarded. Slowly, carefully, the distance between them began to close, not because the bond demanded it, but because Draven earned it, conversation by conversation, apology by apology, small act of kindness by small act of kindness. Elena watched him work through the remaining threats tied to Marin's magic, with a steadiness she had never seen in him before. Not the cold command of a king protecting his territory, but the quiet determination of a man trying to become someone worth standing beside. When the last of the dark magic was finally cleared from Blackthorn lands, the pack gathered once more, this time in celebration rather than ritual mourning. It was there, in front of the entire pack, that Draven knelt before Elena, not as a king before a servant, but as a man laying down every wall he had built. "I cannot undo the years I hurt you," he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd, "but I can promise you, every year that comes after this one, if you'll have me, not because fate chose you, but because I choose you, every day, for the rest of my life." Elena felt the weight of years lift from her shoulders as she looked at him, not the cold Alpha King who had haunted her nights with cruelty, but a man who had faced his worst mistakes and chosen to become better because of them. "I choose you too," she said softly, "not because of the bond, because of who you've become." The pack erupted into celebration as Draven rose and pulled her into his arms, the mate bond settling between them at last, not as a chain of fate, but as a promise freely given. Years later, Elena stood as Luna of Blackthorn Pack, her position earned through respect rather than simply granted through bond. The servant girl who once feared to meet the king's eyes had become a leader in her own right, known throughout the territory for her fairness and quiet strength. And Draven, the Alpha King once known for his cruelty, had become known instead for something far rarer among rulers: humility. He never forgot the years he had wasted in coldness, and he never let himself forget the woman who had given him a second chance he hadn't deserved. Their story became legend among the packs, not because fate had bound them together, but because two broken people had found a way to heal each other, choosing love, again and again, long after fate had done its part.